7 days. That's all it took for happily ever after to become a death sentence. She walked down that aisle in white silk, radiant with love, surrounded by family and friends, celebrating what seemed like the perfect union. Fast forward 1 week, and she was lying cold on her kitchen floor, poison coursing through her veins, betrayed by the man who'd promised to cherish her forever. What could drive a newlywed husband to murder his bride just days after their wedding vows? What secret was so explosive, so devastating, that he chose homicide over honesty? But what secret was so dangerous that he would rather become a killer than let it see the light of day? You are about to find out. Welcome to True Crime Journal HQ. Thanks to all our viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay with us for daily update on the most shocking true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe. Natalie Harper entered this world on a crisp October morning in 1991 in the heart of Savannah, Georgia. Her parents, Robert and Linda Harper, owned a small flower shop downtown where little Natalie would spend her afternoons after school, arranging bouquets and greeting customers with a smile that could light up the darkest room. Even as a 5-year-old, Natalie showed remarkable empathy. When neighborhood kids scraped their knees, she'd rush over with Band-Aids from her mother's purse. When the elderly Mrs. Johnson next door fell ill, 8-year-old Natalie insisted on bringing her homemade soup every day until she recovered. "That child has healing in her hands," Linda would tell friends, watching her daughter tend to injured birds or comfort crying classmates. Natalie's bedroom walls were covered with drawings of herself in a white nurse's cap, helping people feel better. By age 10, while other kids dreamed of becoming movie stars or astronauts, Natalie had already decided her future. She wanted to be a pediatric nurse, caring for sick children who needed someone who understood their fears. Her compassion wasn't learned. It was woven into her DNA. Have you ever known someone whose kindness just radiated from them? Natalie was that person. Pure goodness walking among us. High school brought new challenges, but Natalie thrived academically while maintaining her humble spirit. She graduated valedictorian of her class at Savannah Christian Preparatory School, yet never made anyone feel inferior. She tutored struggling students for free and volunteered at the local children's hospital every weekend. Nat never acted like she was better than anyone, recalled her best friend Jessica Martinez. She'd help you with calculus homework, then ask if you wanted to grab pizza, like she hadn't just saved your GPA. College meant leaving Georgia for nursing school at Emory University in Atlanta. Natalie worked 3 part-time jobs: campus bookstore clerk, weekend babysitter, and hospital cafeteria server, to pay for her education without burdening her parents. Her first heartbreak came junior year when her boyfriend Tyler cheated with her roommate. The betrayal devastated Natalie, making her cautious about trusting too quickly. She focused on her studies, graduating summa cum laude with her Bachelor of Science in nursing. Atlanta became her new home, a bustling city where a small-town girl could reinvent herself professionally while holding on to her core values. She rented a modest apartment in Virginia Highland, determined to build something meaningful. At 27, Natalie had become everything she'd dreamed of as a child. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta hired her straight out of nursing school, and she quickly became the pediatric ward's most requested nurse. Parents specifically asked for Nurse Natalie because their kids felt safer with her gentle touch and soothing voice. She had this gift, said Dr. Patricia Williams, her supervising physician. Scared kids would stop crying the moment Natalie walked in. She made the hospital feel less frightening. Outside work, Natalie maintained close friendships with her college roommates and called her parents every Sunday. She joined a book club, took pottery classes, and volunteered at animal shelters. Her life was full, but missing one crucial element: romantic love. Dating in your late 20s proved challenging. Apps felt superficial, blind dates were disasters, and work consumed most of her time. Friends constantly set her up, but nothing clicked. Natalie began wondering if she was too picky, or if the one was just a fairy tale. Ladies, how many of y'all felt this pressure to find your person? That biological clock ticking while everyone around you couples up? Natalie's story deserves to be heard. If you click away without subscribing, you're silencing her voice. So subscribe, and if you refuse, at least explain in the comments why her story isn't worth remembering to you. Little did Natalie know, when she walked into that charity gala, she was walking toward her own destruction. The Children's Hospital Foundation Gala at the Four Seasons buzzed with Atlanta's elite, but Alexander Stone had only one target that September evening in 2016. He'd spotted Natalie across the room, elegant in a navy dress, laughing with colleagues while bidding on auction items for the pediatric ward. Alexander approached with practiced precision. Insurance broker by day, master manipulator by nature. He'd researched the guest list, knew Natalie worked at the hospital, and crafted his opening line perfectly. "You must be passionate about helping kids to bid that high on art therapy supplies," he said, flashing his $1 million smile. Natalie blushed. Here was a man who noticed her charitable heart, not just her appearance. Alexander played the role flawlessly, asking thoughtful questions about her work, sharing stories about his own volunteer experiences that were complete fabrications. "He was everything I thought I wanted," Natalie later told her friend Jessica. "Successful, charming, interested in my career. He actually listened when I talked about the kids." Red flags were there from day one. Alexander's phone buzzed constantly, texts he'd glance at and dismiss. He never talked about close friends or family. His stories about his past seemed rehearsed. Have you ever ignored red flags because someone seemed too good to be true? What Natalie didn't know was that Alexander's phone was buzzing with messages from Daniel Cortez, the personal trainer he'd been secretly dating for 8 months. While wooing Natalie with romantic dinners and weekend getaways, Alexander was promising Daniel they'd move in together soon. Alexander became a master of deception, compartmentalizing his two lives with military precision. Mondays and Wednesdays were gym nights with Daniel. Weekends belonged to Natalie. He told Daniel that work required frequent travel, explaining his absences. He told Natalie he preferred quiet evenings at home, avoiding public places where both worlds might collide. For 3 years, this delicate balance held. Natalie fell deeply in love with the man she thought Alexander was, attentive, successful, ready for marriage and children. She introduced him to her parents, who adored his Southern gentleman act. She posted couple photos on social media, planning their future together. Meanwhile, Daniel grew increasingly frustrated with their hidden relationship. "When are you going to come out to your family?" he'd ask. "When can we stop sneaking around?" Alexander's proposal to Natalie was spectacular. Hot air balloon over the Georgia mountains, photographer hidden among the trees, ring worth 3 months' salary. Natalie said yes through happy tears, never suspecting she was accepting a death sentence. Daniel watched the engagement announcement on social media from his apartment, heart shattered. He gave Alexander an ultimatum. "Choose her or choose me, but I'm done being your secret." Think about it. How many people fall for someone's mask just like Natalie did? If you don't subscribe, you might miss the one detail that could save you or someone you love. Subscribe now, and if you won't, drop a comment and tell us why taking that risk is worth it to you. But Alexander had made his choice long ago, and it wasn't the one anyone expected. June 15th, 2019. Riverside Manor transformed into a fairy tale setting with cascading white roses, crystal chandeliers, and 200 guests witnessing what appeared to be true love's triumph. Natalie floated down the aisle in her grandmother's redesigned lace gown, tears of joy streaming down her face as she approached her future husband. Alexander stood at the altar in his custom tuxedo, playing the role of devoted groom to perfection. He smiled at all the right moments, his voice steady as he recited vows promising to love, honor, and protect Natalie until death parted them. The irony would become chilling within days. Robert Harper walked his daughter down the aisle with pride, whispering, "He better treat you like the princess you are." Linda Harper dabbed her eyes, watching her baby girl marry the man of her dreams. Friends from nursing school cheered as the couple exchanged rings worth more than Natalie's annual salary. But while guests celebrated with champagne and dancing, Alexander's mind raced with anxiety. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from Daniel, who was spending the evening drowning his sorrows at a downtown bar, watching Instagram stories of the wedding he was excluded from. Alexander's performance was flawless, but inside he felt trapped between two worlds that were about to collide catastrophically. 3 days before their scheduled departure to Tuscany, Alexander dropped the bombshell. "Babe, I'm so sorry, but there's a crisis at work. The Henderson insurance case needs immediate attention, and I'm the only one qualified to handle it." Natalie's heart sank. She'd been planning their Italian honeymoon for months: cooking classes in Florence, wine tours through Chianti, romantic gondola rides in Venice. "Can't someone else cover it? We've already paid for everything." "I promise we'll reschedule for Christmas. This could make my career, and then we can afford even better trips," Alexander lied smoothly. The truth was more calculated and cruel. Daniel had threatened to expose their relationship if Alexander disappeared for 2 weeks immediately after marrying someone else. Instead of cobblestone streets and sunset dinners, Natalie found herself settling into their new Brookhaven home, unpacking wedding gifts while her husband worked late every night. She trusted him completely, never questioning his sudden overtime schedule or mysterious phone calls taken in private. What would you do if your spouse cancelled your honeymoon last minute? Natalie trusted her husband completely, and it cost her life. Don't make the same mistake of blind trust online. Subscribe now so you never let a killer's mask fool you. And if you think you're safe without subscribing, write in the comments why you'd take that gamble. But in that beautiful new house, a deadly secret was about to explode. June 22nd, 2019. 1 week into married life, and Natalie decided to surprise Alexander by organizing his home office. She'd been admiring the mahogany desk and built-in bookshelves since they moved in, imagining how productive the space could be once properly arranged. Alexander had left for work that morning with his usual kiss goodbye, mentioning another late night at the office. Natalie took the day off from the hospital, planning to tackle the chaos of papers, files, and random clutter that had accumulated during their whirlwind engagement. She started with the obvious items: old magazines in the trash, important documents filed alphabetically, pens organized in the desktop holder. Everything went smoothly until she reached the large bottom drawer of his desk, locked tight. Natalie tried pulling harder, thinking it might be stuck. Nothing. She searched the desk for a key, checking every compartment and cubby. Finally, while hanging up Alexander's sport coat in the office closet, she heard a metallic jingle in the breast pocket. One small silver key. Her hands trembled slightly as she held it. Something felt wrong about opening a locked drawer, but they were married now. No secrets between husband and wife, right? Have you ever found something you wish you could unsee? The drawer slid open easily, revealing a world Natalie never knew existed. Her breath caught in her throat as she stared at the contents. Photographs. Dozens of them. Professional prints, candid snapshots, intimate selfies, all featuring Alexander with another man. Her hands shook as she picked up the first photo. Alexander laughing with a muscular, dark-haired man at what looked like a beach resort, both shirtless, arms wrapped around each other. Alexander's smile more genuine than any expression she'd seen during their 3-year relationship. More photos told a story she couldn't process. Alexander kissing this stranger under Christmas lights. The same man's arms around Alexander's waist at what appeared to be a private party. Photo after photo of a life she'd never been part of, love she'd never witnessed. Beneath the photographs lay a stack of handwritten letters, all in Alexander's distinctive penmanship. Her trembling fingers unfolded the first one. "My dearest Daniel, I count the hours until I can hold you again. These business trips are killing me, but soon we'll be together permanently. I promise you that. All my love forever, Alex." The date at the top made Natalie's stomach lurch. Written just 2 months ago, during their engagement party planning. Hotel receipts scattered throughout the drawer painted an even clearer picture. The Ritz-Carlton, downtown Atlanta, February 14th, Valentine's Day, when Alexander claimed he was visiting his sick aunt in Macon. The Four Seasons, March 10th, the weekend of Natalie's bridal shower, which Alexander had conveniently missed due to food poisoning. Natalie collapsed into Alexander's desk chair, the evidence spread across her lap like pieces of a puzzle she never wanted to solve. Her perfect husband, her soulmate, the father of her future children, gay in love with someone else, living a complete lie. The woman who'd spent her career healing others felt something inside herself break beyond repair. As the shock wore off, devastating clarity took its place. Every memory from their relationship replayed through this new lens, and the signs became impossible to ignore. Alexander's reluctance to be intimate, his discomfort with public displays of affection, the way he'd tense up when she talked about having children. "How could I be so blind?" she whispered to the empty office. The mysterious late-night phone calls, his insistence on keeping separate friend groups, the way he'd freeze whenever anyone made jokes about their sex life at dinner parties. Natalie remembered Jessica's concern 6 months ago. "Are you sure he's as into you as you are into him? He just seems distant sometimes." She dismissed it as jealousy, defending Alexander's quiet nature and professional focus. The weight of living a complete lie crushed down on her chest. Every kiss had been a performance. Every "I love you" had been a script. Their wedding vows, sacred promises made before God and family, were nothing but elaborate theater to hide his truth. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "Working late again tonight, babe. Don't wait up. Love you." Love. The word felt like poison now. How dare he use that word when he was probably with Daniel at this very moment, laughing about his naive wife who never suspected a thing. Natalie carefully returned everything to the drawer exactly as she'd found it. She had to confront him tonight. She deserved the truth, deserved to understand how her entire marriage was built on lies. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. If you are enjoying this content, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who is still watching. But Natalie had no idea that confronting Alexander wouldn't bring truth. It would bring death. Alexander's key turned in the lock at 9:47 p.m., expecting to find Natalie asleep as usual after her hospital shifts. Instead, she sat at their kitchen table, the manila folder of evidence spread before her like a prosecutor's case file. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady despite the tears staining her cheeks. Alexander froze in the doorway. His eyes darted to the photographs scattered across the table, him and Daniel at the beach, sharing intimate moments he'd thought were safely hidden. His worst nightmare had materialized. "Natalie, I can explain—" "Explain what, Alexander? Explain how you married me while being in love with another man. Explain how every kiss, every 'I love you,' every promise was a lie." She held up the hotel receipt from their Valentine's Day weekend. "You were with him while I was picking out wedding invitations. You were planning a future with him while promising one with me." Alexander's carefully constructed world crumbled in real time. He tried damage control first, desperate denials, claims that the photos were old, that Daniel meant nothing. But Natalie had spent hours studying every piece of evidence. She knew the timeline too well. "Just tell me the truth," she whispered. "After everything, I deserve that much." The truth. Alexander stared at his wife, this kind, trusting woman who'd given him everything while he gave her nothing but deception. The truth would destroy his family relationships, his social standing, his inheritance from conservative grandparents who'd written gay relatives out of their wills. "Yes," he finally admitted. "Daniel and we're together. We have been for over 2 years." Neighbors later told police they heard shouting until nearly midnight, glass breaking. Natalie's voice demanding answers. Alexander's becoming increasingly agitated as she pressed for details about their entire relationship. The night that changed everything had begun. Alone in his office at 3 a.m. while Natalie cried herself to sleep in their guest bedroom, Alexander's mind raced through his options. Divorce meant losing everything: his reputation, his family's approval, the substantial inheritance that funded their lifestyle. His grandparents' will was crystal clear. Any family member who engaged in immoral behavior would be completely disinherited. Their estate was worth $4.2 million, money Alexander had counted on for his future with Daniel. Natalie knew everything now. She'd seen the evidence, heard his confession. Even if she agreed to keep quiet, divorce proceedings would expose the truth. Character witnesses, financial records, Daniel's testimony. It would all come out in court. His phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "I saw her calling you earlier. Did you tell her about us? Are we finally free?" Free. The word mocked him. Alexander would never be free as long as Natalie existed to expose his truth. She was too honest, too principled to participate in covering up his deception. She'd want the world to know she was an innocent victim of his lies. Alexander opened his laptop and began researching. Untraceable poisons, household chemicals that mimicked natural causes, methods that wouldn't arouse suspicion in a grieving widower whose wife died of sudden illness. Ethylene glycol, antifreeze, colorless, odorless, sweet-tasting, readily available. Symptoms that resembled flu or food poisoning initially. By the time doctors realized what was happening, it would be too late. His insurance background had taught him about accidental poisonings. He knew exactly how much to use, how to administer it, how to call 911 with convincing panic when she collapsed. How does someone you love become capable of killing you? Alexander stared at his reflection in the laptop screen. The answer was simple. He'd never loved her at all. June 23rd dawned bright and cheerful, mocking the horror about to unfold. Alexander woke early, showered, and prepared for work with the same routine he'd maintained for months. Natalie emerged from the guest room red-eyed but determined to discuss their next steps. "I think we should see a marriage counselor," she said quietly, still clinging to hope. "Maybe we can work through this." Alexander nodded sympathetically while measuring 2 tablespoons of antifreeze into her favorite coffee mug, the one that read, "World's Best Wife," a cruel irony that wasn't lost on him. "I'll make coffee," he offered. "We should talk about everything calmly." Natalie sat at their breakfast nook, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked the garden she'd been planning to plant. She trusted him completely, even after discovering his lies. Her fundamental goodness couldn't fathom that her husband was capable of murder. "Thank you," she said, accepting the mug with both hands. "I know this is complicated, but I love you, Alexander. We can figure this out together." She drank the entire cup while discussing counselors and potential solutions. Alexander watched every sip with clinical detachment, timing how long the poison would take to work. 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on her body weight and metabolism. Within an hour, Natalie complained of nausea and dizziness. "I think I'm coming down with something," she mumbled, stumbling toward the bathroom. Alexander waited exactly 43 minutes after she collapsed before calling 911, practicing his panicked husband voice. "My wife just collapsed. She was fine this morning, and now she won't wake up. Please hurry." The paramedics found a devoted husband cradling his unconscious wife, tears streaming down his face in what appeared to be genuine anguish. Evil hides in plain sight. If you don't subscribe, you're choosing to look away, just like Natalie did with those red flags. Subscribe now, and if you won't, then be brave enough to write in the comments why you'd rather stay blind. But Alexander's perfect plan had one fatal flaw. Detective Maria Santos had seen enough suspicious deaths to recognize the red flags immediately. A healthy 28-year-old woman doesn't just collapse and die from sudden illness, especially not 1 week after her wedding. Alexander's performance at the hospital was Academy Award worthy. The devastated husband, who couldn't understand how his beloved wife could be taken so suddenly. But experienced investigators noticed details that grieving families miss. "He kept checking his phone while she was fighting for her life," noted nurse Rebecca Chen. "What husband does that when his wife is dying?" The autopsy results arrived 4 days later, shattering Alexander's carefully constructed narrative. Dr. Patricia Williams, the same physician who'd praised Natalie's work with children, delivered the devastating news: ethylene glycol poisoning, antifreeze, deliberate, lethal. Detective Santos immediately obtained search warrants for the Stone residence and Alexander's phone records. While processing the scene, investigators discovered something Alexander had overlooked in his panic. Natalie's phone contained photographs she'd taken of all the evidence from his locked drawer. "Smart woman," Santos muttered. scrolling through images of love letters, hotel receipts, and intimate photos with Daniel Cortez. She documented everything before confronting him. Daniel became the key to cracking the case. When investigators contacted him, his world exploded. He'd been texting Alexander frantically since the night Natalie died, worried about the confrontation he knew was coming. "I never wanted anyone to get hurt," Daniel sobbed during his first interview. Alex promised he was going to leave her after the honeymoon. He said they could get divorced quietly, that she'd understand eventually. Alexander's alibi crumbled under forensic scrutiny. Security cameras showed him purchasing antifreeze 2 days before Natalie's death. His internet search history revealed research into untraceable poisons. Phone records proved he'd been communicating with Daniel throughout his marriage, including the morning he murdered his wife. The evidence painted a picture of cold, calculated murder committed by a man who valued money and reputation more than human life. Alexander Stone's arrest made national headlines. Insurance broker murders wife to hide gay relationship. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with Daniel's tearful testimony destroying any remaining sympathy for the defendant. "He told me she was just a cover story," Daniel testified. "He said she was convenient, that she made him look normal to his family. When I asked if he felt guilty about deceiving her, he laughed and said she was too naive to ever figure it out." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty of first-degree murder, life in prison without possibility of parole. Both families were devastated in different ways. The Harpers lost their beloved daughter to a man's cowardice and greed. Alexander's parents, who'd never suspected their son's secret life, faced the reality that their homophobia had contributed to creating a killer. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta established the Natalie Harper Memorial Fund, providing support for pediatric nurses pursuing advanced degrees. Her colleagues still speak of her gentleness with frightened children and her ability to bring comfort in the darkest moments. The case became a cautionary tale studied in law enforcement academies and psychology programs. How does societal pressure and internalized shame create monsters capable of destroying innocent lives? Daniel Cortez struggled with survivors' guilt and PTSD, eventually becoming an advocate for LGBTQ+ mental health resources. If Alex had accepted himself, if his family had shown love instead of judgment, Natalie would still be alive, he said in a documentary 3 years later. What warning signs will you never ignore again? Remember, if you haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself, are you honoring Natalie's memory or just consuming her tragedy? If you won't subscribe, then leave a comment and tell us why. Natalie Harper deserved better than the man who promised to love her. She deserved the truth. She deserved to live.